Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you are having a great day. Ready for new stories I've prepared for you? Let's go to the first one, about OP's dad, who disowned her stepsister because she wanted him to walk her down the aisle together with his brother, who her mom cheated on him with. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My half-sister, Emma, 27 female. Mom cheated on our dad, 50 male, with his older brother, 53 male. They were having an affair for a year before my dad found out. My dad tried to fix things with Emma's mom, but her mom ended up leaving my dad for his brother. My dad got into a severe depression and stayed in a really bad state of mind for about 2 years. Things got better for him when he met my mom, 45 female, and they fell in love. And my mom and dad got married when Emma was 7. Emma's mom didn't have any other children. My dad, on the other hand, had 4. Me, 17 female, and my other siblings, 16 female, 14 female, 12 female. My parents always tried to include her in our family, but Emma's mom always badmouthed my mother. She got really close to my dad's brother as well. My dad always tried to be present in their life, but Emma seemed to not be that interested in him and always pushed him away. She didn't like to participate in our family traditions and vacations. Emma's relationship with her stepdad, my dad's brother, was always decent, but they started to get really close when Emma was around 18. Dad was always hurt by this, but no matter how much he tried, Emma always seemed to prefer his brother. When Emma moved to college 3 hours away from us, Dad always went there at least 2 times a month to spend time with her. Sometimes they agreed to meet. He drove all the way there and she canceled because she was tired. She had a party that she had to attend. Dad was always pretty hurt about this, but he never complained. I always remember when Emma didn't invite Dad to her college graduation. He paid for all her studies because her stepdad wasn't comfortable having him there. It was one of the few times that I saw our dad cry. He still forced us to go to her graduation because she is your sister after all. But he never complained, always sucked it up. The straw that broke the camel's back was her wedding 4 years ago. My dad was really excited about the wedding of his first daughter. He paid for all the ceremony, and it was a big wedding. At the rehearsal dinner, Emma informs my dad that he will be walking her down the aisle with his brother. My dad saw red. My dad is the most peaceful, non-confrontational person on earth, but that night, he was a different person. All the things that he had sucked it up over the years got out, and they got into an enormous fight. Dad demanded he walked her alone. Emma didn't kneel. They yelled at each other. Emma said some pretty hurtful things to him, and in the end, Dad didn't attend the wedding, and his brother walked her down the aisle alone. Well, my dad hates Emma with a passion. She is pretty much dead to him, and he doesn't consider her his daughter anymore. He doesn't say anything about her in front of us, but never tried to interfere in my and my other siblings' relationship with her. But he requested us to not speak about her in front of him. Emma tried many times to talk to him, but he always said the same thing, that she's not his daughter, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. Well, my sister gave birth to a beautiful baby boy earlier this year. Dad doesn't want to meet him, even though we tried to talk to him about his first grandkid. Dad always says that he is not my grandkid, he is my grandnephew. Stop referring to him like that. Emma's stepdad died in a car accident earlier this month, and Emma is inconsolable since that. But my dad still refuses to meet her or her kid. How can I support Emma during these rough times? I don't think my dad carrying this much hate inside of him is healthy. Is there a way to try to make things better between them? Any advice is really appreciated. Every person has her breaking point, and Emma pushed OP's dad well past most people's human endurance. Despite the hardship that he was forced to tolerate and consider all that he provided, Emma disrespected Dad too many times for any man with any self-respect to ignore. And she did this among all his family and friends. I assure OP, she has nothing to compare this humiliation to at that moment in his life, and I hope she never does. OP needs to respect his wishes, because if OP continues to push this, he will resent OP for it. He is trying to move forward in life, and OP seems insistent that he not heal because of her own sense of rightness. OP needs to leave her dad in peace and stop opening old wounds. I'm going through a custody suit with my son's dad over our 1-year-old, and I'm so scared of what's to come. Any advice, inspiration would be so appreciated. Backstory: I met my son's dad through mutual friends a couple of years ago. We got to know each other slowly over a couple of months, and little by little, we just clicked. Once we did, we were inseparable. He was saying things like he knew I was meant to be in his life forever, and that no matter what happened between us, I changed his life for the better. One night, as things were heating up between us, we were hanging out with friends, and one asked him about Katie. He brushed off the question and didn't answer. When we were alone later that night, I also asked him about Katie. I was told that Katie was his ex-fiancée. She's still in his life because they had been friends for a decade, but he was definitely single and interested only in me. I was convinced, for a while. At one point, he changed his social media profile picture to a picture of them. I took a screenshot and sent it to him like, "Cool, guess she's more than a friend again." He assured me she wasn't. It was their first picture together 10 years ago, he said. The picture was clearly older, and she was going through a hard time, and he wanted to remind her that she had people in her life that have been in her corner from day one, but that I didn't need to worry because I was the one he wanted, and he was too old to be playing games. If he wanted to be with someone else, he would be. He wouldn't be wasting either of our time. I didn't talk to him for a week, but he was persistent in convincing me that things between them were over, and that he wanted to pursue things with me. He even took down his profile picture. I was convinced. I'll fast forward, but I wanted to set the scene that I was thoroughly convinced that this man was pursuing me, whether he actually was or not. I had suspicions about Katie, but every time I asked, he gave me an answer I believed. It didn't take long, a couple of months, from the time we started exploring being more than friends, for me to find out I was pregnant. Before you get judgmental, yes, I was on birth control. I also had been diagnosed with PCOS several years earlier and was truly convinced I could not get pregnant. I had been engaged to someone else a few years prior, and he and I had tried for 2 years to get pregnant with no success. So to say I was shocked is an understatement. I told Dad 2 days after I found out, but things had already grown complicated between us. The week I found out I was pregnant, Dad told me that Katie was going to be moving into a spare bedroom. She needed help, but things between us didn't need to end. I asked if he was going to get back together with her, and he said maybe, but that he wanted to see if things between us worked out first. So this is the timeline of how things went. Wednesday, Dad tells me Katie is moving in. Friday, I sleep over at Dad's house. Saturday, I find out I'm pregnant. Tuesday, I tell Dad I'm pregnant. Next Friday, Katie moves in. Those few weeks were a whirlwind. When I told Dad I was pregnant, he started to cry. Then began the intense pressure to get an abortion. It lasted for weeks. Let me say that I am pro-choice, but supporting a woman's right to choose and making that choice are completely different things. I understood the realities of having a baby with not only a man that didn't want it, but also who, it was becoming clear, didn't want me. To add insult to injury, about 10 weeks into my pregnancy, Dad tells me he is getting back together with Katie. He tells me I can keep the baby if I want, but he has no plans to be a father, so to understand that while I'm deciding what to do. I do ultimately decide to keep the baby. I am educated, stable, well-paying job, own a home. I could do this. Dad and I didn't talk for a while, but eventually he got curious about the baby. I was about 6 months pregnant, and he and I and Katie all ended up at the same social event. At this point, I was completely hiding Dad's identity. Only Dad and I knew the truth. He introduced me to Katie, and neither of us said anything about him being my baby's dad. After that, he started reaching out to me, asking if I was okay, apologizing for his behavior. Shortly before my son was born, he told me that he wanted to be a father. He He said it would be complicated for a while, but to trust him because he promised that no matter what, he wouldn't let his son grow up in a bad situation, even if that meant leaving Katie. So the baby is born, and Dad and I are on friendly terms for a while. His identity is still a secret to everyone but us, at his request. He starts to say things about how his relationship is suffering and how he doesn't want to announce the baby before he decides what to do about his relationship, because why rock the boat more than it needs to be if he's going to leave Katie anyway? I let that slide for a few weeks. At the same time, he's starting to try to pursue things with me again. I indulge it more than I should have. But I was lonely and scared with a newborn by myself. But it was all talk. We texted all day, every day, but he never came to see us or meet the baby or pay any child support, despite his promises to do so. After a while, I lose my patience. I told him to either step up or leave us alone. If he was going to leave Katie, leave her. If he was going to stay, stop flirting with me. If he was going to be a dad, be a dad. The next morning, I get a call from Katie. Here's what I learned in that call. Over the following weeks, he and Katie were never broken up. He made up wild lies about me and about us to explain how I ended up pregnant and why we hid the pregnancy and the baby, including that I knew about his relationship status the entire time. He was going to let Katie tell him if, when, and how he was going to be a dad. Katie believed she could say and do whatever she wanted to me because I deserved it after what I did to her. She blamed me for not telling her when we met while I was pregnant, and she was saying and doing awful things. Things that put me in fear of the safety of me and my son. Dad participated. I honestly can't tell you who was most mad in this situation. Emotions were high. I said and did things I regret. We all did. Dad and Katie disappeared for a couple months, and honestly, I'm relieved. During this time, I sporadically reach out to Dad and offer to get a parenting agreement in place. I tell him our son deserves for us to act like adults, regardless of how we feel personally about each other. The requests are ignored for a while, but eventually Dad agrees to meet with me as long as Katie can come too. She had decided to stay, but she was still angry. She spent the entire meeting telling me about all my boundaries with her fiancé and how she wanted to raise my baby. For my son's sake, I was humble and cooperative. I agreed to all her boundaries and told her she would be welcomed into my son's life. We leave the meeting, and I don't hear from them again for almost a month. It turns out Katie wasn't sure that she could be around my baby. She was going to stay with Dad, but she wasn't sure she was going to let him be a dad because it was really hard seeing me and being reminded of what he did to her. Fast forward. We eventually begin visitations, but I'm cautious. Katie has temper issues, and she and Dad seem all too comfortable with walking in and out of my son's life. Unsurprisingly, Katie gets angry one night when she feels Dad and I are getting along too well, and makes Dad cut off contact with me again, for months. But it was different this time, because I wasn't reaching out anymore. If he wanted to walk away from his son, fine. I wasn't going to chase him. He had never paid a cent of child support, so I didn't need him for that. And my son didn't need the instability. Well, then Dad's parents get involved. They're religious, and pressure Dad to step up. The only way he's allowed to do this, per Katie, is to pursue joint custody because she wanted this baby to be as much hers as it was mine, because she was the one who was supposed to make Dad a father. This is not all just speculation. These are literally things she said to me. That brings us to today. We are in the middle of a custody battle. It's so dumb. I'm not fighting visitation at all. I have offered it liberally. I know that if Dad is consistent, it is in my son's best interest to have him around. But he is dead set on joint custody. And on top of that, he's now spinning the tale that he had to take me to court to see his son because I cut off contact with him and was keeping the baby from him. This man has, by his choice, seen his baby 5 times total in 2020. I have never said no when he's asked, but Katie is still uncomfortable with the situation because they have to see me to see the baby, and she gets no say in decisions. He thinks it'll be different when he has joint custody. Oh, and he and Katie have since gotten married. No, my son was not included in the wedding, and he wasn't invited to meet his family while they were all in town. Most still don't even know he exists. For the record, there has never been fighting in front of the baby. At the very least, for all our shortcomings, the adults in his life have managed to respect that boundary. Also, for the record, Dad and I have no semblance of a romantic relationship anymore. We actually get along just fine when we talk in person, but he has to run all texts and emails through Katie before he can respond, and has to take all calls while she's around, and they have to be on speaker. So things stay tense, and I feel like they're always one step away from erupting, which they do from time to time, over the simplest things. So my question is, how do I co-parent in this toxic environment? OP will never be co-parenting in this situation because they don't want to co-parent with OP. OP's son is not Bio-Dad's priority. Katie is. The only way Katie wants OP's son in their life is if she can pretend OP doesn't exist. That is not healthy for OP's son. OP's son will grow up watching his dad constantly pick Katie over him. He will probably be punished for ever talking about OP. Katie will probably denigrate OP to him. They will have no respect for OP's parenting or any choices OP makes for her son. They will probably fight things just to fight OP. OP's son would probably be healthier not having Dad as part of his life than to be used as a tool to punish OP, because that is what Katie will do. She will try to find ways to hurt OP the way she was hurt, using OP's son. OP needs to document all of their behavior, get everything in writing, get an attorney, and fight tooth and nail against any meaningful custody. They will make OP and her son's life hell.